Hi everyone, and today I'm going to present Animal Farm because it's the book that I read. So, first of all, some information about the author. George Orwell was born in 1903 and lived until 1950. He was a very famous writer and journalist, especially because of his most viewed books, which are Animal Farm and 1984, that are actually considered classics of literature nowadays. He was a strong believer in democratic socialism, and he reflected that in his pieces. George Orwell was invested in talking about social injustice, abuse of power in general, and the dangers of authoritarism. He explained how using clear and truthful language can make people manipulate others people mindset. He basically in his pieces of writing he really liked to explain how how you can gain a lot of power through your speaking skills. So about the setting, the book happens in the United Kingdom. It is like a farm in rural England. As the story progresses, the setting changes to reflect the changes in the farm. The setting of Animal Farm plays an important role in the story as it represents the physical and political landscape of the Soviet Russia during the time when the book was written. The book was written in 1945, shortly after the end of World War II. So that is the setting. Now for the plot, I did this diagram with drawings in which you can see the actions of the book in order. So the first thing that happens is like a brief exposition of like the context of the book. So the animals in the farm are oppressed by Mr. Jones, that is the like a drunk farmer which rules the farm. The animals want to do something about it, but they don't know exactly what to do. After that, the old mayor, which is like a very wise and old pig, convinces the animals to make a revolution and rebel against Mr. Jones, in order to gain control of their farm. Then what I consider the rising action is the revolution might be complete, but the pig leaders do not seem good leaders after all. The equality they promised is not seen anywhere. So they have, at the beginning of the story, they show like some commandments that they should follow in order to live peacefully among animals. And as the story progresses, this the pigs start to modify those commandments in order for them to gain more power and for them to have less work than the other animals. Then the climax is that after Snowball is exiled, Snowball is like a very important pig in the farm. After he is exiled, animals suffer starvation, slavery, and all the work they have been working on is useless because the windmill, that is like a very important project they work on in the book, is destroyed twice, and the second time it is destroyed by humans. Then the following action is that the pigs start to change the rules. They, as I said, they modify these commandments in order for them to do nothing compared to the other animals. Then Boxer's health deteriorate and he is sent to a hospital, but actually he was just sent to a glue factory to die. So Boxer is like this very hardworking character that works for the common good, and then he has some health issues and he is killed. Well, not not exactly killed, but he's sent to a glue factory by the pigs. And finally, the resolution of the book is that the pigs turn into the new humans, since they have now taken all human habits as theirs, and now the other animals can even tell the difference from pigs to animals. So, as the story progresses, the pigs gain more power and they start to walk like humans, talk like humans, and therefore rule like humans do. Now, for situational archetypes, I have four of them. So the first one is the revolution. The animals planning to rebuild themselves against the human farmer Jones is an example of a revolution archetype, because it represents a group of oppressed individuals fighting for their freedom. Then we have the battle. There are like a couple of battles in the story, but the Battle of the Windmill is an example of a battle archetype. This archetype represents a conflict between two opposing forces that result in a decisive victory for one side. Then we have the Fall, that I describe as the pig's descent into corruption and tyranny, that represents the fall archetype. This archetype represents a group of individuals who start off with a good intention but ultimately become corrupt. And finally, the sacrifice archetype. I wanted to include this archetype because of Boxer's death, because I feel like it represents a sacrifice archetype. This archetype represents a character who gives everything for the greater good, but they are ultimately betrayed and abandoned by those they trusted, in this case, the ruler pigs. Now, for situational archetypes, I have like the most important characters of the book represented as archetypes. So to start off with Napoleon, which I describe as the leader turned tyrant archetype, because he starts off as a respected leader and then he gradually becomes more ruthless and authoritarian, using violence and fear to maintain his power. Then we have the wise old man. As I said, there is this very wise old pig that is named the Old Major, and he is like the visionary leader who inspires the animals to rise up against the human oppressors. Then we have the rebel, which is Snowball. He is like this very passionate and idealistic rebel who fights for animalism rights and wants a better society for all animals in the farm. Then we have the Shimmer, which I think is Squealer, because he is like this propaganda maker who twists the truth in order to make the other animals vote for Napoleon for keeping his own power. So basically, Squealer covers everything that Napoleon does like incorrectly. So he covers it up with a bunch of lies that all the animals actually believe. Then we have the worker, which is Boxer, because he's a very loyal horse and hardworking animal who symbolizes the honest labor and the power of the working class. And then we have the skeptic, which is Benjamin, because he's like this cynical and skeptical donkey who sees through the lies of propaganda of the ruling pigs, but he ultimately fails to take action. And finally, we have the oppression, which is, of course, Mr. Jones, because he is the human owner of the farm, and he represents oppression because he like represents the traditional powers that exploit working class, which is in this case the animals. Napoleon could eventually also be the oppression archetype, but in this case I chose Mr. Jones. Then I chose 4 symbols. First, the farmhouse. The farmhouse represents the corrupt government that the animals overthrew. Then we have the windmill that, as I said, is like the very important project all the animals work on. The windmill symbolizes the idea of progress in the Soviet Union 5-year plans. Then we have the 7 commandments, which represent the principles of animalism. And then we have Napoleon, which represents the Joseph Stalin and the corrupt leaders in the Soviet Union, which I'm going to explain later. Then we have the major and the minor theme. As a major theme, I chose the pigs becoming increasingly authoritarian and oppressive. I think that is the main idea of the book. The fact that they altered the 7 commandments in order for them to have more power over the other animals. They also use propaganda and fear to maintain their control over the other animals. And this basically represents like the idea of those with power become corrupt, and that power can oppress and exploit others. Then, as a minor theme, I think that the author really wanted to like show the idea of the importance of language, um, because it represents in such a way where pigs take advantage of the like literacy, because the pigs were the only ones that like knew how to read at the beginning of the story. So that is what gives them like power over the other animals, and that is how language can shape others people, or well, others animals perceptions in this case. Then we have memory and history can be altered, and the fact that the pigs rewrite the history to make themselves the good ones. As I said, everything that Napoleon did wrong, it was covered up and believed by the other animals. Now I have some vocabulary to show you. So, autocracy is a government where only one has power overall. Proletariat is the working class that does not have any kind of power or wealth. Then we have, hold on, I need to.
Bourgeoisie.
Then we have bourgeoisie, which means the middle or upper class, especially those who own property or control the means of production. Then we have a scapegoat, which is a person or group blamed for the mistakes or problems of others. Then we have Machiavellian, which is like behaving in a decisive manner, especially for political gain. Then we have demagogue, I think that is how that is pronounced. Is a political leader who gains support by appealing to people's prejudges and emotions. Then we have oligarchy, which is a small group of people who control a country or organization, often for their own benefit. We have doublethink, which is the act of simultaneously holding two contradictory beliefs or ideas and believing both to be true. We have psychopath, I think that how that is pronounced, which is a person who flatters and ingratiates themselves with someone in order to gain advantage. And finally, dissent, which is disagreement or opposition to a prevailing idea or policy. Now, as a favorite quote, I chose this one that is really famous among readers, which is all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. This is my favorite quote of the book because once you understand the quote and its relation with the book, you actually get to analyze like the main things that the author wants you to keep from the book, which is this idea around power and authoritarianism. As a character to analyze, I chose Napoleon because I feel like he's the one that has more character development, and also the fact that he represents an actual real life person, which is Joseph Joseph Stalin, which was a member of the Soviet Union, and he was like a very corrupt leader that killed a lot of people, and well, in this case, a lot of animals. And then my final thoughts about Animal Farm. I believe that it is a very, very good book. It is really worth reading. Unfortunately, I read it kind of like in a rush, but it's a very enjoyable book. It's short and it's light to read, and it actually leaves you with a lot of knowledge and like reflections and things to think about. I think that I will give the book a 10 out of 10 because I like short books because they are easy to read. And yeah, thank you very much.